Good evening, everyone, and thank you for your patience. Is there a motion to return the regular board meeting to public session? Mrs. B. Thank you. Mr. LeMay, second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. I call the regular board meeting to order. All board members are present. Mrs. Van Soist, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please be advised that if there is a fire emergency, an alarm will sound, and if an evacuation is necessary. Please note all marked emergency exits and evacuate well away from the building. At this time, we request, please everyone turn all electronic devices to silent. Thank you. Is there a motion, please, to approve the agenda as presented? Mr. LeMay, thank you. Mrs. Beeger, second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Dr. Martzloff, would you please talk to us about recognition?
Thank you, Mrs. Leatherbarrow. This evening, we would like to recognize several students and a teacher from Williamsville East High School. First, we'd like to recognize Madison Wang, an 11th grader at Williamsville East who received a perfect score on her ACT. At this time, I would like to invite Mr. Swatland, principal of East High School, to come forward and tell us more about this impressive achievement.
Before we start talking about Madison a little bit, I'd like to thank Cody Romanos and Nick Filipowski for coming to East High School today for our Flavors of East. We had 300 students attend after school today, and the event really highlights our cultural diversity and aims to build the connections within the school, the community, and acceptance. We had 30 food tables, 8 restaurants, 22 clubs and community members, and we raised over $550 for Journey's End. And Nick and Cody did a fantastic job on making a video for us for that, which is on Twitter. And now on to Madison. We currently have 4 juniors that have achieved a perfect score on their ACTs. As you know, it's 0.5% or 0.05% of students are able to achieve this feat. This brings our total to East High School to 11 perfect ACT scores in the last 11 years. We currently have 9 students at East High School that have earned a perfect score on their ACT. Madison not only is a great student, but she also does a lot for our school and our community. She's a member of the girls' swim team. She is part of the Science Olympiad, which placed 3rd this past weekend, is moving on to states, and she's also part of our Biology Olympiad team. So not only is she a fine student, she's a great citizen and adds to our school. So congratulations, Madison.
Next, we'd like to recognize Mrs. Carrie Faye Daly, a social studies teacher at Williamsville East, who was awarded the Reed Taylor Award for Excellence through the Academy for Human Rights. At this time, I'd again like to invite Mr. Swatland, the principal of East High School, to come forward and tell us more about this impressive achievement.
Thank you again. Ms. Faye Daly was awarded the second annual Reed Taylor Award for Excellence in Human Rights Education. She's done a lot for our building, she's done a lot for this community, and she's done a lot for the school district. She has created a women's history course, which is now used at all 3 high schools. She is the advisor of Girl Up Club, which is uniting girls to change the world. She's the advisor of Stand Up, Stand Out, which is an anti-bullying club. She's the advisor of Seneca, which is advancing women's rights nationally and internationally. All of those have a focus on human rights, and I believe she is in charge of the History Club as well. So she is busy every day. Mrs. Faye Daly relentlessly pursues her passions and educates others in the classroom and beyond. She has lobbied New York State Education Department to include more women-based questions on the Regents exam. She writes a letter to them every year, and this year she was, they finally answered her letter, and she now gets to go and help write questions for the Regents exam. She's also presenting at the New York State Social Studies Conference for the second consecutive year. So she does a tremendous job in the classroom, outside the classroom, and advocating for women, and we couldn't be more proud of her. You want to say anything?
I just want to say thank you, and I see some people that I've known for a while, and I see a lot of students, some of whom I've had in global or women's history or now in current events. So, but I want to say thank you to all of you, and importantly, thank you to all of them, because that's why I'm here, is for you guys. So, thank you.
Oh, okay, we're good.
Lastly, we'd like to recognize a 9th grader at Williamsville East High School who won the Congressional App Challenge for the 26th District of New York. At this time, I would again like to invite Mr. Swatland, principal of East High School, to come forward and tell us about this impressive achievement.
To complete the Night of East with all of our students here in attendance, Vidya Shah has entered the Congressional App Contest, and over 10,000 students registered for the 2019 Congressional App Challenge. The students created and submitted 2,177 functioning apps, marking the end of the most successful Congressional App Challenge to date. All told, 304 members of Congress hosted congressional app challenges in their district across 48 states, Puerto Rico, and the Marina Islands in Washington, D.C. Vidya was the winner for Congressman Higgins' congressional district. She created a prototype of an app called Hover Over, which uses drones to take pictures of terrain that is engulfed by wildfires. Then she wrote a code to have these pictures analyzed and identify humans that would be in danger of the wildfires. And then that information is sent to first responders. She did a fantastic job as a 9th grader. She spoke so eloquently when the news came to interview her, and Congressman Higgins was there, and it just goes to show the impact of the community and the support that we have at Williamsville East High School, and it's students like we have here tonight that make Williamsville East such a special place. So congratulations. Do you have any questions about the app that you'd like to ask?
Yeah, if she doesn't mind. Can you tell us a little bit more about it? Is anyone using it currently in any of the tragic fires that are happening around the world?
I mean, right now it's just a prototype, but that's where I got my idea for the app from. At the time, it was like October, November, and it was like the burning Amazon and the California fires and recently Australia fires. And I thought, why not try to figure out an app if I'm going to enter this competition that could help what's happening in the world right now. So if this could be used in the daily life and for situations like this, that would be amazing. But there's still a lot to work on to make it actually work in real life. But yeah, it's a prototype right now, but I'm hoping that it can actually be used in the future.
Well, thank you for putting it together. It sounds like you've done a wonderful job, so thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you.
I would like to recognize all the talented students who performed at both East and South this past weekend in their musical productions of Guys and Dolls and The Wedding Singer. Dr. McCleary and I went to Guys and Dolls together on Friday night, and the level of talent that existed all in one room was really incredible, and it was a delightful way to spend an evening. Congratulations to all students and adults involved in both productions. Are there any other board acknowledgements? Thank you. Moving on to public expression. Dr. McCleary, would you please read the board's public expression statement?
Welcome to all who have come to observe this regular board meeting. Per policy 1510, the board has set aside 30 minutes for public expression, a time when we invite members of the community to share ideas and concerns with us. We welcome this opportunity to hear from you. Each person is given up to 3 minutes in which to address the board. You will be signaled with a yellow flag at 2.5 minutes so that you may conclude your remarks. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means we will not be engaging in a dialogue with members of the community this evening. Rest assured, we are listening carefully and we take seriously what you have to say. We would also like to ask that you demonstrate respect for us and for one another by speaking to the issues, giving us ideas and sharing your opinions, but not engaging in any personal attack. Thank you for your cooperation. The first person who has requested to speak is Kristen Cacciati.
Good evening, everyone. The district at the last board meeting provided you with class size research in your packet. A lot of the class size research is mixed. Unfortunately, it is nearly impossible to truly measure the effects of class size because of the numerous other factors that would need to be exactly the same within the classroom setting. Much of the research cited by the district is old, and in education, we know that things are changing all the time. The way that teachers teach and classrooms are set up is drastically different than they were even a handful of years ago. Readers and Writers Workshop is a perfect example of this. Teachers are facilitating student learning, which requires a lot more time, energy, and use of innovative lessons. Teachers are walking around, checking in, and conferencing with all of their students. Social emotional learning is a large focus in schools today as well. Statistically, we know that our students are dealing with more anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues than ever before. I have not found studies done on class size and the impact on students' social emotional health. However, as an educator of almost 20 years, I am confident that regular class sizes would benefit students' social emotional health. Students feel connected to school and are able to form relationships with adults, along with countless other social emotional benefits. We want our Williamsville students to have the best education possible. We can do this by providing them with regular class sizes. You have received over 100 letters, I have a few more, from residents that are concerned along with me. To me, this is very telling. In addition to these letters, many of the parents that have spoken at past board meetings are teachers. They had personal stories of the importance of regular class sizes. I will continue to be attending the board meetings and look forward to hearing what you have in mind going forward regarding class size guidelines. I would also be more than happy to have phone conversations or meet with any of you to discuss this issue further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Karina Paolucci.
Good evening, Karina Paolucci, 76 Wyeth Drive. I'm here again tonight, it's been a while, but to support the reduction of those class size guidelines. I've been watching the board meetings, I've been reading the documents that are attached, and I want to thank Dr. Balin for putting together that research because I think it needed to be done with your eye. I think it was perfect. I know there's support on either side of this particular issue. And my hope is that you will take your personal experience and the anecdotal evidence that parents and teachers have brought to you, and it'll tip the scales for the board to take a close look at this issue going forward during the budget season. I also wanted to come here because I have been very happily a part of the strategic planning group. And there's been information through the focus groups that I think has been interesting to me as somebody who is very active in reducing those class sizes. And I felt that maybe this was information that you would want to have going into budget season. Because if you don't know what is being said and what people are saying in the focus groups, maybe it would tip the scales for you. I don't know, but I thought it was worth to come here and share some of the information. These are general questions that were asked of a focus group of students, parents, and teachers. And the questions are general. Are there any changes to the educational programming that you would like to see? This is from students. Things that are peripheral to me, to class sizes. Kids need to speak up if they are struggling, they don't, and they fall behind. There are too many students in some classrooms, less in others. They need to divide them more equally or have added teachers to the crowded classrooms. Those are middle schoolers. High schoolers are saying some classes are too big, 28 to 30, not enough teachers for electives. They need more projects. Some things are too lecture-based. Other questions, our school curriculum work, is it challenging? Middle schoolers are saying teachers do not always check to see if we understand. Some students won't ask questions because they don't want to look dumb. Teachers provide an opportunity for students to ask questions in class. High schoolers are, some high schoolers, this could have been one, it could have been many, but teachers need to get more personal with kids, reach out to kids not getting stuff, encourage us to raise our hands. Students go on, let's see, there's a lot here about can you discuss topics? Smaller class sizes are better, some are over 30, big classes can be distracting. Students in the back of big classes talk to each other. This is just a small spattering. There's more, I have tabs. I hope that this is something that you will look at going forward when you're talking about class sizes. Thank you.
Thank you.
At this time, there is no one else signed up to speak. We still have time in our agenda if there is anyone who would like to approach. Are you a student?
Yeah, I'm Gabe Will from East High School.
That's fine.
All right, cool. So recently, our school newspaper ran an article on mental health days, and we also put a video on YouTube about it. And based on the research we did among the student populace, there is good support for this idea. For those of you who don't know, mental health days are akin to physical sickness days, where students would be able to miss school for reasons of mental health, say increased levels of anxiety, depression, or even sleep deprivation. So according to statistics from the government and respected polling firms like Pew Research, levels of depression, anxiety, anorexia, and various other mental diseases have been skyrocketing among American teens. And I believe that the problems of the time require solutions of the time. The governments of Utah and Oregon, being cognizant of this, have both instituted mental health days as a valid reason for missing school. And I believe that mental health days may be even more valid, because just because you can't see an illness does not mean that it's not there. I understand that a common criticism of mental health days is that they may be kicking the can down the road, students running away from their stress, but actually the science disproves that. So the most common reason for, or I should say that depression, anxiety, other mental health diseases are directly correlated with sleep deprivation. And if we look at the biological clock of teenagers, the average sleep time is around 11 p.m. when teenagers have been scientifically proven to need about 8-9 hours of sleep. So obviously the school times are starting at 7:30 in the high schools. And because of that, taking a day off would directly be able to help students cure those symptoms of mental disease. So I strongly urge that you consider this in future policymaking. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Again, is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Thank you.
Okay, seeing none, I'm going to move on to the approval of our consent agenda. This will be to approve item 7, personnel, 8, business, and 9, special needs and student activities. Is there a motion, please, to approve the consent agenda items 7, 8, and 9? Mrs. Van Sice, thank you. A second. Mr. Borenstein, thank you for the second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. I would like to thank the following retirees for their service to the district. Christine Campagna, Maple East Elementary, teacher aide, 31 years of service. Elizabeth Cohen, Heim Elementary school nurse, 21 years of service. Rosalind Grossvainer, North High School, teacher aide for 6 years of service. Leonard Pope, district-wide laborer for 38 years of service. Matthew Pope, South High School head custodian for 28 years of service. Thank you so much for your service to our district. Item 10 is the approval of our minutes. Is there a motion, please, to approve the January 14th regular board meeting minutes? Mr. Mecca, thank you. And Sean LeMay for our second, thank you. Are there any corrections or additions to the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Dr. Vanita, are you abstaining?
If I need to, I was here for a portion.
Okay. Okay, then we're good on that. All right, motion carried unanimously. Thank you. The President's report, Erie County Complete Count Committee 2020 Census Meeting. Mr. Borenstein, rather, would you like to give us a report on this committee meeting?
Sure, thank you for that. On Thursday, January 30th, the U.S. Department of Commerce Census Bureau and the Erie County Executive's Office hosted a program to put the upcoming census on the radar of local school districts, convey the importance of the census, and recruit census takers. March 12th starts the census with mailings and e-reminders and such. April 1st is designated as Census Day with national events and promotions. Personal visits by census takers doesn't actually begin until May, but 9,000 census takers are required by Erie County alone to ensure that our county, and most importantly for everyone here, our school district is represented in the census. The key takeaways are that this once-a-decade constitutionally mandated census counts every person living in the U.S. After each census, state officials redraw the boundaries of the congressional and state legislative districts to account for population shifts. The resulting data ensures that our school district will receive its fair share of the $675 billion in federal funds, grants, and support to states, counties, and communities, which includes support for school programs and services such as special ed, free and reduced price lunch, class size reduction, classroom technology after-school programs, Head Start, and even capital projects such as our music improvement project that is ongoing. Beyond our school district, the census has a tremendous impact on the improvement of our community as well. In New York State alone, that means approximately $75 billion in program support. And most importantly, in the short term, they need census takers. So to inquire or to join the team, there's a website, of course, 2020census.gov//jobs. There's a phone number, and the census jobs provide pay, flexible hours, paid training, and taking part is actually a very satisfying civic duty. So job one for the census right now is to promote the census, to ensure that our school district is fairly represented, which equates to the funding that we receive. So we haven't actually spoken about this, but there's much to post. And if there are any community individuals or groups that are interested in participating in the census, which would have a direct impact on our support, please either feel free to contact me, or hopefully we can post some of this information on our in WITS or on our website. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Borenstein. The Fund Our Future, did you have I'm sorry, Mr. Mecca, I didn't see your hands.
On that topic, any student that's over 18 can apply for the job. The pay in this area is between $18 to $20 an hour. School board members need not apply. As elected officials, we are ineligible to serve as census workers.
I found that out the hard way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mecca, for that additional information. Any other questions or comments on that? Thank you. The Fund Our Future NYSET event took place on Friday, February 7th. Dr. McCleary and I participated along with Dr. Martzloff and Mr. Filipowski. WTA President Michelle Light, Vice President Scott Horton, WAA President Charles Milnich, NYSET leaders and Assemblywoman Karen McMahon, and members of the media. I wish to recognize the WTA President and Vice President Michelle Light and Scott Horton for bringing this opportunity to the board's attention about a month ago, and for the time and effort involved in its coordination. Thank you also to Dr. Martzloff for your leadership in planning our bus stops and for bringing awareness to the problems and confusion with how school districts receive funding from New York State. So, on February 7th, we rode the bus. We rode with NYSET leaders to advocate for increased funding for public schools. Our first stop was at South High School. At South, we participated in a roundtable discussion with school psychologists, social worker, and school counselors. After that, we went to Country Parkway. Principal Bowen greeted everyone and spoke about what it takes for our students to achieve English proficiency and how more teachers are needed so our students can achieve at high levels. We visited a kindergarten classroom and observed a lesson, and then we met with a group of ESOL teachers. They are responsible for teaching English to speakers of other languages. What I loved about this trip was how at both schools, the teachers and mental health staff really took the lead and had the opportunity to shine. It was evident to me at both South and Country Parkway that we have knowledgeable, highly skilled, and student-focused staff who are stretched really thin to meet the needs of our kids. I want to publicly thank them for their daily dedication because, quite frankly, there should be more of them and our students deserve more of them in order to better meet their needs. I also want to acknowledge Assemblywoman Karen McMahon. She was our only local lawmaker that attended. She showed up, she stayed the full time, she listened intently, asked questions, and was fully present. Assemblywoman, our students need you to be their voice and to advocate for them. All students have a right to a free and appropriate public education. Williamsville and school districts around the state need adequate state funding in order to provide facility upgrades, SROs, mental health support staff, and more teachers for E&L learners, and yes, even smaller class sizes. State mandates must come with state funding, and we need our governor and our legislators to fully fund our future. In other news, the District Art Show will be hosting will be hosted at the Buffalo Niagara Heritage Village from March 2nd to March 7th. From March 4th through March 7th, the show will be on display during their normal museum hours. March 2nd will be the elementary reception, and March 3rd will be the middle school reception. Moving on to the Erie County Association for School Boards. A legislative meeting took place on January 16th. It was attended by Mr. Mecca and Dr. McClary. Do either of you wish to comment at the table? No, thank you. Our budget and finance team meeting took place on January 16th. Attended was Mr. Mecca. Any further comments on that meeting? No, thank you. The Rick Timms Dessert Forum took place on February 6th. Mr. LeMay and Dr. McClary both attended. And Dr. McClary, do you wish to report on anything from that night?
No, we submitted written reports.
Yes, thank you. Upcoming meetings for the Erie County Association of School Boards on our legislative team meetings will be held on March 19th and again on April 23rd. Attending will be Mr. Mecca and Dr. McClary. Do I need to make any changes to that?
I'm a maybe.
A maybe for which night?
Either one of them.
Okay.
He is the delegate.
Got it. All right. Our budget and finance team will be meeting this Thursday, the 13th. Mr. Mecca, are you good with that night?
Yeah, the time is not correct on there, but I don't know if that matters much. It's 6:30 to 7:30.
Thank you. All right. Upcoming events. The Scholastic Achievement Recognition Dinner will be taking place on Thursday, May 21st. They will be at Salvatore's at 6:15. I'm guessing, Mrs. Carey, you'll let us know any additional information so we can RSVP for that.
Yep, I'll keep you posted.
Okay. And our prospective school board member information. There will be a workshop on Saturday, April 4th. This will be at Erie One BOCES, and this is for anyone who might be interested in running for the school board. Saturday, April 4th from 8:30 to 12:30, and you can reach out to our district clerk if you would like more information on that. Should a board candidate become elected, the following are mandatory trainings that need to be fulfilled within the first year of service. These include a governance training and a fiscal oversight training. So there will be a governance training. It's a 6-hour course that will be offered on Saturday, June 13th through Erie One BOCES. And also a new board member 6-hour fiscal oversight responsibility training will also take place at Erie One BOCES, and that will happen on Saturday, June 20th. Erie County Association of School Boards legislative breakfast took place on Saturday, January 25th. I unfortunately was not able to attend, but attending from our board we had Mrs. Beeger, Mr. LeMay, Dr. McClary, Mr. Mecca, and Mrs. Van Sice. It was held at East High School, and Dr. McClary, would you like to report on the event?
Thank you, Mrs. Leatherbarrow. As was already stated, the legislative breakfast occurs so that members of the community and a school district have the opportunity to interact with our elected officials. At this particular breakfast, there were a number of legislative aides, the legislators who were there, Senator Tim Kennedy and Assemblywoman Karen McMahon, were able to attend. And it was really interesting, I felt, to hear them give their answers when members of the audience asked them questions about legislation or the things that are coming up, such as the governor's budget. And the important piece that comes out of any time there is a discussion about legislation is that it is our responsibility as citizens, members of a school district, members of a school board, to continue to be active and involved with all that is going on the legislative front. Our elected officials aren't going to know what they should fight for if we don't say to them, this is what's important to us. And those were some of the things that came out of the meeting. I don't know if anyone else wanted to add. Please.
Mrs. Vincent?
Yes, it was a great morning. I'd like to thank Williamsville, our district, for hosting again. We had so many people from our community, staff, administrators, the leadership team, Dr. Martzoff, many board members that came out, as well as other Northtown school districts that represented. Collectively, as a whole, Erie County Association School Board identified the 4 top priorities that we really are trying to seek some funding for, which is foundation aid, mental health funding, special ed funding, and then the BOCES capital exclusion. I would like to thank Erie County Association School Board President, who's here with us tonight, Mr. Dave Lowry. So thank you very much for putting this together and helping us. It was very successful. Dr. Martzoff had a great, in his closing remarks, to quote him, he said that we all have a part in this, meaning every single person, students, teachers, parents, community members, as well as district staff. We all have a part in trying to get funding, and what our legislators told us is that we need to email and continue to email stating how this lack of funding, the impact, the negative impact it's going to directly affect our district. Then they can take that and they can go to Albany. Mr. Lowry just mentioned that he actually went to Albany yesterday to fight for this, but every year we say it's scary, and right now we're in the same predicament that we don't know what our funding looks like. So everyone should have a part in this. We all need to speak up and speak out to fight for what we need in this district.
Thank you. Does anyone have anything else to report under Erie County Association of School Boards? All right, moving on to, oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Mecca.
So with that, and Suzanne's statement about our advocacy, so we're having our legislative team meeting Thursday, 6:30 to 8:30, right? March 19th. Anybody have a, oh, we'll have a meeting before then, no? Oh, never mind.
New York State School Board Association will be holding an Academy of Information. Should a board candidate become elected, training is offered also through NISBA as it is through Erie County Association of School Boards. There will be a new school board member academy in Niagara Falls, New York from August 21st through August 22nd, so it'll be a 2-day course. And more information will be coming both from NISBA and through our district. Does anyone have anything else to report under New York State School Board Association? Item E is our observation sheet. If I could invite my board members just to take a look at that in the board packet. At our January board retreat, one of the recommendations from our NISBA facilitator and one of our agreed actions from those in attendance was that we will use a meeting observation tool to evaluate how well we operate at a future board meeting. Dr. McCleary offered to shorten the observation tool that NISBA provides, so I want to thank her for doing that. A copy of that tool has been provided for you in board docs. Thank you for reviewing it. Is there a motion to approve the observation self-evaluation sheet to be used periodically throughout the year at board meetings as presented? Mr. Lemay, thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Borenstein. Is there any discussion on that motion? Mr. Mecca.
Items number 7 and 12, to me, seem to be in conflict with each other. I'm just wondering if anybody else sees it that way.
Item 7 says appropriate procedures are in place to permit any member to add items to the agenda. And then item 12 says, items are rarely added to the agenda at the last minute in order to avoid surprises for either board members, the superintendent, or administrative staff. I think number 7 is meant to be in terms of planning the agenda. I think we could perhaps add some appropriate procedures in place. Maybe we could add agenda planning time.
That might make it clear.
Is everyone looking at that? I am seeing some head shakes, okay. And so we'll amend that, so we add those words, and I see Mrs. Carey writing it down. And any other questions or comments on it? Okay.
So just a quick
Yep.
question. Was it agreed upon, by the way, Dr. McCleary, this looks great, thank you, from where we were to making it more concise. I think the tool is good. Were we at consensus as far as who would be using this tool? If we are using it, if members of leadership team, is that something worth discussing now, or are we just approving the tool at this point?
So that's a good question. I remember there was some discussion. I recall specifically asking the NISPA facilitator that question, and she recommended that this would be for our purposes as a board only, to use this at the end of the meeting. We would score how we functioned and ran through our agenda and executed our meeting. And then Mrs. Carey agreed that we could turn the forms into her, and she would compile that data and report it back out to us.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Are we good to take a vote, or would you prefer to table this and work on it? Okay, I think we're good to take a vote. So is there a motion to approve the observation self-evaluation sheet? We already did that motion, right? And we're in discussion. So all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries 8-1. Thank you. 8-1-0. All right. Item F. Is there a motion to resolve to adopt the procedure and timeline for the election of school board members as presented? This is the timeline for electing school board members. Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Mrs. Van Swy's second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Ms. Carey, would you like to provide an update on board candidate packets?
Yes, thank you. Currently, we have board candidate packets are now available at district office, and partial packets are available on the website. There are 3 positions that will be available for 3-year terms. There is no monetary compensation for serving on the board. However, you must take a sworn oath of office that you will faithfully discharge the duties for the Williamsville Central School District according to the best of your ability. I do like to meet briefly with interested candidates to go over the timeline and answer any questions they may have. Again, all the information is in board docs. And the 3 board members whose term expires June 30th are Dr. Susan McCleary, Mr. Philip Meyer, and Dr. Kurt Venator. Thank you.
Thank you. Item H. 2 board members shall be elected to serve on the Board of Cooperative Educational Services, 1st Supervisory District of Erie County, at the meeting designated by the BOCES Board President, to be held on April 21st, 2020, to be held in each of the component districts. Incumbents are Mr. John W. Sherman, Tonawanda City School District, and Mrs. Janet McGregor Plar, Frontier Central School District. And having indicated that they will be seeking re-election, only 1 board member can serve from the same school district. The deadline for nominations is March 20th, 2020. This will be on the March 10th, 2020 regular board meeting agenda for board action. So it's just information purposes for today. Item I is our school board visits. We visited Forest Elementary on January 17th. It was myself, Mrs. Beeger, Mr. Borenstein, Mr. LeMay, and Mr. Meyer. On January 28th, we visited Maple East. That was Mr. Borenstein, Mr. LeMay, Dr. McClary, Dr. Venator, and myself. This past Monday, last Monday, February 3rd, we visited High Middle School. Mrs. Beeger, Mr. Borenstein, Mr. LeMay, and myself. Our upcoming board visits, we have one this Friday for Valentine's Day at Mill Middle School. That will be at 8 a.m. Right now, it's Mr. LeMay, myself, and Mrs. Van Slyce is listed as a maybe. Is there any confirmation? Mrs. Van Slyce says she can attend. Is anyone else able to attend this Friday? Okay, seeing none. Then on March 2nd, we will visit Casey Middle School. Mr. Borenstein, Mr. LeMay, and myself have committed. Mr. Meyer is a maybe. Is there any change in those commitments to visit Casey? Thank you. And on Friday, March 27th, we plan to visit East High School. This will be at 7:30 a.m. Mr. Borenstein, Mr. LeMay, Mrs. Beeger, myself, and then Dr. McClary and Mr. Meyer are listed as maybes. Any changes to visitation for East? Thank you. Okay, item J is our community forum. We will be holding our second community forum. It will be held on Saturday, April 25th. This will take place at Williamsville South High School from 9 a.m. to 12. Let's see. All except Mrs. Beeger have previously expressed a commitment to attend from the board. Mrs. Beeger is unable to attend. Is there anyone else that is unable to attend at this time? Okay, thank you. We certainly do invite all members of the community, employees, parents, students, and all community members to please join us on April 25th. That's a Saturday morning. Item K is for board docs. This is for information regarding how we post our leaves. Recently, the WTA Executive Board contacted the school board with a concern about how employee leave is posted on our board docs platform. I want to thank them for their letter because it provided an opportunity for us as board members to receive legal guidance and to better understand our responsibility to protect employee privacy while aiming to improve transparency to the public through the use of our board docs platform. Dr. Martzloff, the board requests that going forward, recommendations to approve a leave of absence be listed as paid leave or unpaid leave as public content in board docs, but that specific reasons for that leave not be listed publicly. A similar recording should be listed in the board meeting minutes to be approved at the next regular scheduled board meeting. Any questions or concerns?
No, Mrs. Leatherborough, I think I'm pretty clear on it, and I think we will avoid the term leave of absence. And so I'll ask Dr. McKenna to make sure that happens going forward, and Mrs. Carey to, of course, as she always does, double check it to make sure that we don't mistakenly put something in there like that that would violate confidentiality.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments from the board? Thank you. Item L is our Strategic Planning Committee update. The upcoming Strategic Planning Committee meeting will be held tomorrow, Wednesday, February 12th, all day long, right, Dr. McClary?
Yep.
Dr. McClary, do you wish to report on the committee's progress?
Thank you again, Mrs. Leatherbarrow. I would like to just give a little bit of an update for everyone. I've spoken previously about the fact that strategic planning is a year-long process, and individuals from all parts of our district, community members, administrators, teachers, staff, have come together and started looking at ways that we can improve as a district. And hopefully you as students or community members or parents received at least one of the surveys that was alluded to before, and you had the opportunity to give some input. Where we are now is that the larger committee, the core committee, has taken that information and has tried to digest it down into areas that we can now go forward and look more specifically at. It's still a item in fluidity because things can change as we continue to talk and meet. But right now, we have 3 current goals for this core committee, things that we plan on looking at. And again, these are our broad goals. The first one is the communication practices. This means that a clear structure within a building or over the district on how to offer input and collaborate with others, including parents. The second goal is wellness, community, and sustainability. This means access to tools and practices that support physical, social, and emotional wellness, feeling welcome and connected to various communities, and awareness of our global environment. And the third goal is teaching, learning, and leadership. This means using strategies, consistency, and best practices that are aligned with New York State standards, monitoring student progress, and opportunities for leadership roles. Our February and March meeting will focus on refining the goals to produce possible strategies for each of these goals, which still might continue with revision. Are there any questions from anyone? Yes.
That's a big commitment on both of your parts, Mr. Bornstein and Dr. McClary. So when I saw the length of time as I was reviewing the agenda, I said, wow, that's really nice of them to do that on behalf of all of us. So thank you.
Thank you.
Right, our next item is item 12, the superintendent's report. Dr. Martzloff, would you like to give your community update, please?
Thank you, Mrs. Leatherbarrow. I also want to recognize and thank all those individuals that helped out with our legislative breakfast on January 25th held at East High School. I certainly want to thank our board members who were there and those that helped plan it, as well as thank Mrs. Warner and Mr. Swatland from East High School for all the planning they did and the preparation that took place. I certainly want to thank Mrs. Carey for all her facilitation and leadership to make sure that we had a very nice breakfast for everyone that attended. And I want to thank our assistant superintendents who all came to the legislative breakfast as well to help advocate for what is right. And then the next item I want to mention is our opportunity to ride the bus last week with people from all over the state. Really, some of the president of NYSET was on our bus, and we had terrific conversations, and it was really a nice opportunity to showcase, for example, at South High School, all of our mental health staff and all the things that they do to support our students every single day, and the importance of being able to bolster that for the future. That was one opportunity. And then over at Country Parkway Elementary School, certainly serving the needs of students who have English as a second language is critical to our success as a school district. Excuse me. As you know, we've had an increase of about 43% in the number of students who have English as a second language over the last 5 years. That's been a growth area in our district. So it's important as a school district that we work to support students who have English as a second language at a very high level. And so we made that known to the news media and the other individuals that were there at Country Parkway. I'd also like to thank and recognize Mrs. Leatherbarrow. She did a terrific statement, really on behalf of the school board of why these things need to be closely paid attention to. She did a terrific job, and I really hope that people will get out and advocate with their legislators. It's critically important. The major change that's being proposed by Governor Cuomo is to take 10 expense-based aid categories, boil them down, and add them to foundation aid. It was sort of like if you get money every week as an allowance, you get $10 a week, and somebody owes you some more money, they're going to give you $12 a week now, but not until they take away 8 of the $10 a week they used to give you and put that towards the $12. So if that makes sense to you, that's sort of what's happening on a very large level in the state of New York, given Governor Cuomo's budget proposal. And while the harm that would be done to the district would be more minimal for next school year, it would be quite large going forward, because what it would do is it set up a system whereby any additional aid for any school district in New York State would be done by the political process, not by what our expenses are or our number of students are or other objective factors. That's really important to think about going forward. So I hope if you do talk to legislators, please have them push back against that. That would not be a good change, particularly for Williamsville. So we will continue to advocate and meet with our legislators, and we encourage all of you to do the same. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mertzloff. Our next item is the Curriculum Extension Report. A copy of the enrollment numbers for all of our curriculum extension classes is listed in the board docs packet. Dr. Mertzloff, do you wish to add anything to that?
No, not at this time. I want to thank Dr. McKenna for putting this together. He worked with the principals and staff members to do so, and I think it was helpful to see this information across the district. So thank you, Dr. McKenna.
Thank you. When we talk about curriculum extension, we're talking about art, music, phys ed, and I can't remember his
Library.
and library. And this is for the elementary schools. So in this chart, each school is listed with their class enrollment for art, music, PE, and library. Are there any questions or comments by the board? I'm going to start down on the right, and we'll just move on down. So Mrs. Beeger?
Sure. First of all, thank you for compiling this information. It makes it a lot easier to see and know what we're looking at when people have comments or share their thoughts about curriculum extension. For the most part, everything looks fine. My only comment is the concern that I have when there are more than 5 sections at a grade level. And it's only a handful of grades at a handful of schools, so it's not an overarching issue, but my concern is when there are, say, 7 or 8 sections at a grade level and they're combining those students into 5 sections during the week, which is creating a larger class size than an average class size. My question is, has there been discussions or any conversation around shifting this so maybe all classrooms can go to their curriculum extension on their own, or ways to keep these class sizes smaller? And again, it's not across the district everywhere. It's just these couple handfuls of schools where you see 7 or 8 sections for the grade level instead of 5.
We have had those discussions with the elementary principals and talked about it. The best way I can summarize it for the school board is it's not a major area of concern for our elementary principals at this time.
Well, we are going to continue to analyze it. I know in our next meetings, we have staffing coming up, and this data will be used in our staffing meetings this month and next month as we review for next year. So putting this together is going to help our analysis as we move forward. But we have looked at that as well.
That's good. To follow up, I understand why it's not an overarching concern. I feel like when you're looking at this and when principals look at this, it really may just be one grade level where, and I don't want to offer solutions per se, because I think that's really the job of the district, but there's just a couple grade levels that seem well over that in conversation when looking at staffing or scheduling. I'm curious if those conversations can continue in those handful of grade levels, just to ensure that we're not really going overboard, particularly in our youngest grade levels.
They definitely will. In fact, we myself and Dr. Balin, we just spoke to today about at the next grade level meeting that we're going to be talking with the elementary people about this. And in March, again, we have it on the docket to, as part of our staffing, to continue to look at this as well. So it's a continual analysis of it and brainstorming of what we can do. So we're constantly trying to do the best we can. But you're right. Sometimes when there's those many sections, fitting into 5 sections, it makes a problem. What I can say, too, is from talking to principals, they have, in some cases, there are extra sets of hands in there I know that if there's special ed students in there, I know the aides of the students will go into the class with them. And if they feel that they need some extra support, for example, in art, I know they said that they'll put extra hands in there to make sure that they give some extra support when necessary.
And Mrs. Bigger, you made the point about when there's more than 5 sections. And I think that's critical to remember. If we have more conversations about class size reduction, you're going to have more and more grade levels in additional elementary schools that have more than 5 sections at each grade level. So that's going to make an issue potentially around that impacts CE class size.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anybody else on the right wish to speak? Mr. Lemay?
I want to reiterate Mrs. Beeger, but I actually want to take a step and look at this. I summarized the data here, and I want to present the summary to the rest of the board. There are 743 curricular extension classes district-wide from kindergarten through 4th grade. 339 of them are over the district's guidelines. That's 46% of our CE classes. Breaking it down further, I looked at the classes that were specifically 30 or more in them. There are 13 art classes that have 30 or more students in them. 5 of those are in kindergarten. There are 13 music classes that are 30 or more. Again, 5 are in kindergarten. 20 physical education classes are 30 or more. 8 of them are kindergarten. And 13 library classes, of which 30 plus. 5 again are kindergarten. So I'm not quite sure what the solution is here, but I'm going to guess that administering or trying to deal with 30 plus kindergartners is got to be very stressful and difficult, to say the least. I'm hoping that we can somehow look into this to address this for next year. If it's a budgetary thing, I realize this is the time of the year to discuss that. I don't have the answers. You know, I know we've pondered some other ideas outside of the box, but I think as a board, we're willing to listen to just about anything to see what we can do to try and at least reduce these numbers.
Well, in our staffing discussions, we definitely will discuss this and the whole picture too. When we get together with K-12, we look at not only the CE areas, but we actually look at all areas and all classes. So it's pretty comprehensive discussions, but this is definitely something that we're taking a closer look at this year. This is the first year that we actually put this detailed amount of report into the CE classes. So I'll say that it's probably going to get the best analysis that we've done so far into this area.
Thank you. Does anyone else from the board wish to comment on this? Mr. Mecca?
I don't want to cut.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. Dr.
No.
Oh, go ahead, Mr. Mecca.
Thanks for the report. Yeah, this is the first time I've ever seen anything like this, and I think it's useful to look at. In the interest of full disclosure, I have a kindergartner at Maple West, so I'm speaking a little bit as a parent on this particular issue. We had a large number of kindergartners enroll in Maple West this year, more than what were expected, and they had to open classrooms that they didn't expect to open, and space is very tight over there at Maple West. The average class size for all curriculum extensions for all the kindergartners at Maple West is 30.8 students per class. I'm wondering, I don't know if you have the data available, and don't mean to surprise you by this. If you don't have it, no big deal. If that's the average, what was the high? Or what's the range?
It's right here in the chart.
It is?
I think
It's grade level.
Listed in the chart.
Yeah, it's all
Sorry.
the classes are, yeah, they're all
31, 31, 31. Okay, got it. Sorry. I didn't understand what that was about there. Okay, so it's fairly consistent then, that 30.8. It's not like you have one with 37 and one with 25 or something. It's very concerning to me, and it's also concerning to me that because I don't understand why the principals would not be interested in trying to resolve this issue. Or I forget what you said at the outset. It was like that the principals are not concerned by this or something to that effect is what you said. When you said that, it kind of blew me away. I completely cannot understand why someone would not be concerned about an average class size of 31 kindergartners. I did an informal survey of my daughter because I didn't want to assume that this is a bad thing, because it could be a good thing in some ways too, right? You know, you're coming across students that you don't normally encounter in the school day, and So I said to my daughter, I see that some of your classes like art, music, and gym are fairly large. Do you see this as a good thing, or do you see this as a bad thing? And she said, I see it as a bad thing. And I asked why, and she said, because there's a lot of there's a lot of kids doing bad things in the class, which, I don't know if that's true or not. It's a 5-year-old's perspective, but, given 30.8 or 31 kindergartners on average in a class with one teacher, it's possible that the behavior management might be difficult. I'm very concerned by this.
I guess to address your comment, Mr. Mecca, that the principals didn't, I don't want to misquote you, didn't.
And I don't want to misquote Dr. McKenna. So.
He wasn't the one that said it, I said it.
Oh, you said it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry about that. I thought Dr. McKenna said it. So please, I don't mean to misquote you.
I think the issue is if you said to them, in order to resolve this, we need to add more staff, right? Their response was, we don't want to add more phys ed, art, music, and library staff members. If you're going to allow us to add more staff, we want more reading support, we want more AIS support, we want more support for literacy and mathematics. They're looking at their priorities being different than this particular issue illustrates. Do they care about it? Yeah, I think they care about it, but I don't think it's a priority for them to add staff to these areas to address it, is the best way I can put it.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I can understand the idea behind it as well.
Yeah.
And I think this year, too, we had to add staff to the classrooms. We had, with the Maple West, we had to add, extra teachers in the classroom and at Maple East. So we had to look across the district at all the needs at that point in time. And I know at the beginning of the year, the need at that point in time was to relieve the class size issue that we had. There was an immediate problem that had to be resolved at the beginning of the year.
Dr. Renato, were you waiting to weigh in? Or?
Sure, but after Mark.
Okay, Mr. Mecca.
Who knows what the future holds with Maple West and kindergarten enrollments. I mean, we had our enrollment projections, and supposedly this is not going to be a continual trend. But if it is a continual trend, we're going to have to figure something out, because equity-wise, when you look at this chart, it doesn't seem equitable or fair to the kindergartners or students at Maple West. But then again, I don't want to be advocating just for Maple West. I'm a board member for the whole district and all that. But it doesn't, Maple West is severely impacted by this.
Where does your child go to school?
Right.
Dr. Renato.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to say thank you for this detailed information. This is very helpful. Obviously, we like making decisions based on rational information. Mr. May, thank you for your condensed summary as well. That's very helpful, and I think does a good job highlighting some areas of opportunity. So, like Mr. LeMay, I do not have any immediate answers, probably more questions, but I think this is a good piece in the puzzle when we also consider class size in general beyond the CE courses. And it's something that I know we're hearing a lot from the community. I've heard from teachers recently during visits as well that this is high on their mind. So I look forward to further discussions around this, and I thank you for the information.
Well, we wanted to make sure you had thorough information. That's why we wanted to list every single class, so you could see every class in every school and get a good full picture of it.
Thank you. Our next item, item C, is a review of the 2021 student calendar. Dr. Mertzloff, do you wish to point out anything significant on the calendar?
The one thing I'll point out is there's 188 days for teachers in the calendar. Contract calls for up to 189. Did not want to add yet another day in the following week after graduation for professional development. So we're keeping it at 188 as of right now for this particular draft of the calendar. The other thing you'll notice is there's no March conference day anymore for staff development, and that allows us to have another day of instruction for students. So we want to make sure we build in enough potential snow days, for example, and also have more opportunity for students to be in their classrooms and actively engaged in learning. So this is where we are right now. We hope to finalize it over the next few weeks. It's been shared with all the union leaders in the district, and we've received some of their feedback, and we'll continue to receive that feedback and bring a final draft of the calendar to the board for your approval at the next meeting.
Hey, Dr. Mertzloff, any questions on the calendar? Mr. Lemay?
Questions in most students' minds, second to when the last day of school is and when vacations are, is how many snow days are in this calendar?
Well, snow days, you're looking at 176 plus 4 staff development days to get to 180. There's 188 actual days for teachers, so it looks like there would be 8 snow days.
Thank you.
Not that we would ever use those.
Never,
but they are
never.
Present.
All right, next we will have our second reading and adoption of new and revised policies. So just for reminder, first we're going to take them from the table and then we will vote on them. Would someone like to motion to take from the table the following new and revised policies? The new policy is 6211. It is the registration and professional development. And the revised policy is 6121, sexual harassment in the workplace, and 7134, student attendance areas. So a motion to take them from the table. Dr. McCleary, thank you. Mr. Lemay, second. Is there any discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Now we will vote on them. Would someone like to make a motion for the second reading and adoption of new policy 6211 and revised policy 6121 and 7134? Mr. Borenstein, thank you. Is there a second? Mr. Lemay. Is there any discussion? I did have one question. Dr. Mertzloff, the sexual harassment policy, it references a form that will be available on the district website to report an incident of sexual harassment. I wasn't able to find that form. I wasn't successful in locating it on the district website. And I just want to ensure that being able to report any harassment wouldn't be a barrier if they weren't able to find the form. Can you advise on that?
Yes, it is present on the HR tab in WITS currently. And after the board reviews and potentially approves the changes to this policy, it will be on the website beginning tomorrow.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Okay. Any other discussion on any of those policies? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Item E is the approval of our UPK sites. Is there a motion to resolve to approve the universal pre-kindergarten sites for the 2023, or from the years 2023 to, from years 2020 through 2023 as presented? Mrs. Van Cise, thank you. Is there a second? Dr. McCleary, thank you. I'm clearly not having 2020 vision. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Item 13 is finance. Is there a motion to resolve to approve the property tax settlement and transfer amount from tax reserve as presented? Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Need a second? Mr. Borenstein, thank you. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Item B. Is there a motion to approve and authorize the request for proposals for internal cyber auditor and claims auditor services as presented? Mr. Lemay, thank you. Mr. Mecca, thank you. As a second, is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Item 14 is our liaison reports. If you have any liaison reports, please send them to Mrs. Carey. The list of meeting dates are in board docs. Since our last regular board meeting, does any board member wish to report on a school event that they attended? I just want to bring everyone's attention to the chart that is in board docs and our agreement that we would attend a minimum of 2 school events and 3 PTSA meetings throughout the year as our year reaches its halfway point. Mrs. Van Slyst?
I would just like to, I know I did a board report on this, but we just had the Tri-High PTSA, or the, I can't remember what it's called. I think it's the Tri-High, okay. The PTSA meeting where all 3 schools come together. And it focused on mental health. So we all broke into our units, had our own meetings, came together then and went through a little PD session. And it was very helpful, I think. It was great to get together with all 3 schools and to collaborate. But it was impressive, as I put in there, that the administrators, principals, and at least 1 AP from every school was there. And it's just commendable to see that in this district, the amount of time that much of our administration and the staff puts in extra. Even when you go to sporting events, you see many staff just coming because their students are involved. So it was a great event. I think it was awesome to have East, South, and North all together in one place, and it was productive.
Thank you, Mrs. Van Slyst, and thank you for mentioning the mental health component. I went to the SEPSA event, which focused on mental health. There was a what do you call it? Panel, thank you. There was a panel of mental health providers from the area, and one of them was one of our district counselors, and they took question and answers from members of the audience. And then I think it was like the next day or perhaps the day before that the PTSA Council did their presentation with a mental health provider who they showed a video called Resilience, and then there was questions and answers after that. And then again, mental health was the topic of our Tri-High event. And we had a student tonight come also and speak about that, right? So we're definitely seeing that as a trend. And with our NYSET event, when we visited South High School, Dr. Martzloff mentioned that the president of NYSET, so NYSET's the New York State United Teachers Union, so the president of the State Teachers Union was there, and he told us that he's been on this bus now for a while, going all across the state, and regardless of the community, whether rural, urban, or suburban, and regardless of the wealth or lack thereof in the district, mental health is a prominent need that's to be taken quite seriously. So it was just very interesting to have him there to share with us some of what he's witnessed just from riding this bus around the state. So I thank you, Mrs. Van Slyst, for bringing that to our attention. And I do want to say that I did get to go to the basketball game the other night, and Mrs. Van Slyst and we attended with Dr. Martzloff as well, where they were able to honor some of our first responders who helped save a referee's life just a few weeks ago. So that was really a very emotional night to be there for that recognition, and I wish everybody well on that. Mr. Mecca.
Just a question, if we're still on 14, PTA, liaison assignments and all that.
Yes.
I wonder if, as we go along, would it be appropriate to delete previous events from the upcoming PTA, PTSA building and other meetings? Because it makes it kind of hard to see what the upcoming events are when the previous ones still exist there.
You mean delete them from the chart?
Yeah. Otherwise, why is it an upcoming chart? Shouldn't it be something else then?
Perhaps we could call it something that. I personally prefer to keep it because I think it serves as a record of, for me, it's a record of what I've attended and what I still need to do. I think it also helps to show members of our community whether or not we are honoring our commitments in our services.
We're probably not talking about the same thing then. So there are actually 2. There's one that's color-coded, upcoming PTA, PTSA building and other meetings, right?
Yep.
And that has everything on it, and then you scroll down, and then there's the little check mark thing with building events, whatever. And then there's administrative content. Oh, perhaps that's the same thing, but just That doesn't appear for the public? I don't.
Correct. So anything in
Oh,
board
okay.
docs that's listed under administrative content is
Huh.
just for board member eyes or eyes of district employees that have access to it.
Gotcha, okay, all right, because I looked at that and I said, well, how am I supposed to tell the upcoming events? I gotta weed through all the previous events.
Does that help a little bit?
Well, yes and no.
Comment on that?
Sure.
I am able to do that in administrative because it is for your eyes only. If you would prefer I do it that way, if that's okay, because it would have both. It would have the public view color coded.
I'm just trying to make sure I understand. So you want to take the, under administrative content, anything that was a past event, erase, just so that there's less?
Yeah.
Make it clear. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, because, I looked at it to say, oh, what's coming up for me? And I'm like, oh, God, why, I don't want to look at this chart. I got to look at everything else to get to there. But, yeah, that would be perfect solution if it's
I'll clean
not
it up.
too,
Nope, I could do that.
I'm fine with that. Is everybody else okay with that? Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other events to report from district liaisons? Okay, thank you. Number 15 is legislative. Are there any legislative matters that anyone would like to discuss? I know we've spent a good deal of time tonight pointing out the obvious regarding state aid and funding. And Dr. Martzoff, thank you for the contribution to the Buffalo News article the other day.
You're welcome.
Questions or comments or additional legislative? Yes.
My only comment would be, I think we've all really established the importance of the need to advocate. And I wonder if there's something we can do, I don't know, the board or the district. I remember a few years ago there was a place on the website where for parents who were interested in advocating to legislators, there was a place they could click and find the link of who to write to. And maybe if we can organize something like that, I don't know if that's we or the district, but just a place where community members can see who they need to contact to make it one step easier, instead of people who think about this and know that it's a good idea but then aren't sure of the next step. I recall just a few years ago when we were in maybe it's longer than a few years ago, but we were in a budget crisis, and the district did something like that on the website, and I found it to be a really valuable tool, and I used it. So just an idea.
So thinking that, and I was going to suggest that, so because the report that I had was about emailing, maybe if we could just have the emails to Tim Kennedy, Senator Tim Kennedy, and then Assemblywoman Karen McMahon. They were the two at the legislative breakfast who said, please email us directly so that they can then take it forward. So maybe we can have their email addresses or a way just to click on it and be taken right there. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, I think at the time that Mrs. Beeger was mentioning, we even had letters and emails written out, pre-written for everybody, so they could just copy paste it and email it right to our legislators. And I think that particularly this year, that's critically important. So I'll ask Mr. Filipowski to begin the process for putting that on our webpage over the next week or so.
Dr. McCleary.
I would just like to add, I of course am in agreement with all of that. If we want to quickly turn also to our Erie County Association of School Boards, they've got all kinds of things about who the legislators are, how to contact them, and so forth and so on, that maybe if you wanted to reach out to Mr. Lowry, you could also do that. Volunteering you, sorry.
No, I don't think we need to speak to Mr. Lowry.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Lowry, I forgot, I didn't see you were still here. Or just kidding. Of course we'll reach out to you.
I like that idea, and I think as a parent, I frequent WITS a lot more than I do the district website. So perhaps even having the information be posted right on the left-hand margin of WITS when you log on. Because I try and log on every 2 weeks to check those high school grades. I think that would be really helpful, because that's when I really go through things. And sometimes a link, something will catch my eye that might bring me back to the district website, but I think most parents are pretty much sticking with WITS if they're checking anything at all. And our use of Twitter as well would be wonderful for this. Okay, any questions or comments on that? Mrs. Beeger?
Just to finish it, it's an opportunity, I think, for us to educate the community about what's happening regarding funding. So in addition to it just being a link and here's the email address, if that could be coupled with just a concise statement of what this is for and why, so parents understand what we're suggesting advocacy around. I think that would be helpful too.
Sounds good, thank you. Item 16 is curriculum. There are no items currently to discuss. Item 17, there are no personnel items currently to discuss. Number 18, district facilities and support services. Dr. Mertzloff, would you like to give us a facilities update, please?
There's just some items there on the current capital project, as well as the one that, the music project, as well as the one that we're planning to bring to the board formally for your approval at our March meeting, to share some information about what those are about. I'm happy to answer any questions any board member might have.
At this point with us rebidding, what is our timeline for putting shovels in ground?
For the music project you're
Yes.
talking about? Yeah, for April.
Still on track for April timeframe? Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments regarding the information provided? Okay, seeing none. Item B, is there a motion to resolve to approve and authorize 2018 Music Improvement Capital Project bid recommendations as presented? Mr. Borenstein, thank you. Mr. Lemay, second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. There are no special needs or student activity items to discuss. Item 20, does anyone have a request or matter to discuss under committee of the whole? Thank you. Is there any correspondence that anyone wishes to share or discuss? Thank you. We will now conduct our second public expression with the same rules as outlined for our first public expression. Anyone wishing to address the board should go to the podium and sign in, please, at this time. Going once, going twice. Thank you. Would someone like to make a motion to recess the regular board meeting? Mr. Lemay, thank you. Mrs. Van Zyl, second. Is there any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. All right, I would like to call the budget work session to order. All board members are present. Dr. Mertzloff, would you like to start the 2021 budget development presentation?
Thank you, Mrs. Leatherbarrow. At this time, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Matursky, our Assistant Superintendent for Finance, who will share information relative to the budget development process.
Thank you, Dr. Martzloff. So today we're going to review our second look at our budget development for the 2020-21 budget. The information I'm providing is in the same format that you received back in January. What I'd like to do is just highlight some of the adjustments that we've made since that last presentation. The key item here, the change on the, I'm going to first concentrate on the upcoming 2021 budget column, is that we've assigned a number for health insurance, and that number is $195,000. The other item that now is removed from this sheet is a potential increase for school bus transportation contract. So we are not going to need an increase there. As a result of those two changes, our increased number comes to $5,412,253, which provides us with a working budget of $200,597,091, or a 2.77% increase. Or excuse me, a 2.87% increase. And just looking at the other column, what I've done also just as a side-by-side is to review what the adjustments would be in the next year, and you can see that that total number is $5.4 million. With that said, the next page has not changed at all. We still are putting forth the change for our administration, and there's an increase right now for district-wide of $100,000, and that's for various items we would put for equipment throughout the district. So that's a $254,000 increase, and if you look at it as a percentage of our entire budget, it's 0.13%. Our reduction amounts are still at $500,000. So that amount, again, has not changed, and that's attributed to the transition of our transportation contracts as we discussed back in January. So as we get to the final page on the summary, what we're at is a budget increase of $5,607,253 from our continuation budget, the $254,000 from our program support, and the reduction amounts of $500,000. So our total increase is a net amount of $5,361,253. Again, a working budget of $200,546,091, or 2.75%. Again, on the other side, you see, as if we look forward to the following year, if the increases shown in the program continuation were to occur, that budget would be at 2.69%. So it's pretty consistent, and that is close to what we've had in the past. So at this time, we're able to provide you with a look at what our tax cap is, and this is the information that is really guiding us on what our maximum levy increase can be for the 2020-21 budget. So the first starting point is, of course, our levy from this current year of $126,925,908. The 1.009% is a growth factor that's provided to the district from the New York State Department of Finance. The next piece is what we had in last year's tax cap formula. That's our 1920 pilot number of $2.8 million. And then that creates a subtotal when added all together that is used to multiply by the CPI rate of 1.81%. So it's under 2%, as we all know, for the 2021 budget. That creates an initial working levy of $133,236,956, and we need to reduce it by what will be the estimated pilot amounts for the 2021 year, and you can see that that has gone up by $50,000. So you'll also see that increase in our revenue budget when we do get to that point. That creates an amount of $130,386,956, which creates a levy increase that's at the tax cap amount of $3,461,048. We have a $36,000 carryover from last fiscal year per the officer of the Comptroller's office, and that allows us to have a total levy increase under the tax cap of $3,497,048. That is representing a 2.76% increase. As we would move forward, the proposed levy then right now is at $3,489,092, and we would be at 2.75% increase on the tax levy under the tax cap, and we would be $7,956 under the cap amount. And this information has been submitted to the Office of the State Comptroller. So as we look at the next phase of our budget, at this time we normally do share our state aid estimates, and as Dr. Martzloff mentioned earlier, this year is quite unique and different in that we still do not have sufficient information to provide a state aid estimate. In addition to all the items that Dr. Martzloff mentioned, the only other item that I would add is that the foundation aid formula is composed of at least 9 different options, And those options are not necessarily meant to provide better aid, foundation aid to districts. They're really meant to drive aid to certain areas of the state. And as some of us went through a workshop a couple weeks ago, and they went through the formulas, and they're specifically put together to make sure that the shares that are being given to aspects of the state, whether it be downstate or wherever, that they continue to occur. And that is another critical factor that Dr. Martzloff mentioned earlier with the way foundation aid is being calculated. And that is another reason for concern. So with that said, if you look at what our increase is, right now the only increase I'm showing is the amount under the tax cap, the levy amount of $3,489,092. With our total increases at $5,361,253, we currently have a working deficit of $1,872,161. So that is where we are at this point in February.
Mr. Matursky, can you please share with the board the last time you were not able to provide a New York State aid increase estimate at the February board meeting?
It probably goes back about 15 years, maybe even more, when we didn't receive our state aid until July or August, when the state was not passing budgets back then. And so no one had any estimates at that time. But that was the last time. So it's been at least 15 years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Matursky, for your detailed presentation. Does anyone from the board have questions, comments, or concerns to express about the budget?
You have a question?
Van Sice?
Just a question. So beyond the state aid, and I know we're not sure what that is, what other types of revenue do you foresee that the district might encounter?
I look at all the revenue categories in detail every year, and an early look right now, there's going to be pluses and minuses is what's going to happen, is what I can say. I think we're going to see a little bit of gain in our interest income area, so that's going to help the district. There's going to be some losses in some other areas, though. Generally, I think that will provide some benefit to us on a positive nature when you look at all of them together.
Do you foresee teacher retirements or anything like that having a positive impact as a potential?
We're always looking at those when we get into the next few weeks to develop what those budget reductions will be, so we're not actually trying to cut program or anything like that.
Mr. Bornstein?
Thank you, as always. Very concise, very clear. So 15 plus years ago, what happens if there is no definitive budget on May budget day, vote day? What is our fallback position if we don't get those state numbers into the budget?
Well, I think what we will be doing is I will have a lot of detailed background information, and I look at historical state aid information. I put it all together. There are certain aid categories that I can definitely estimate, and we'll put together an estimate that will be, I won't say it's conservative, but it will be realistic. And that will protect us not just for the next school year, but you do not want to put yourself in a deficit position where you over budget state aid.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, that year it's under, you receive less than anticipated. And then when the next year comes, you're starting your entire budget process with a deficit. So it will be a realistic budget estimate for state aid when we present it in March.
Sure. Yes, that's very helpful. Would it also be helpful to have sort of a community awareness campaign leading up to that, if in fact we don't have the definitive numbers that you've been able to provide us these last years, so that we make it part of our community awareness efforts to alert the community what they're voting on?
I think everything is very beneficial. If you can do items like that, that would definitely help.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Bornstein, what you're speaking to reminds me that when we go to our PTSA meetings and we give our board liaison report, that perhaps as board members we make that a priority of what we emphasize. I think
Yes,
that
agreed.
a long way.
Yeah, in fact, with the efforts, the increased efforts to communicate with the community by the board and by the district, there are multiple opportunities between now and May to make this, a leading agenda item when we talk to the community. The community forum comes to mind very quickly.
Absolutely.
But certainly every PTSA meeting that we attend, and maybe others.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments on the budget? Mr. Lemay?
Just a quick comment on Mr. Bornstein's comments here. Is there any legal implication to us presenting a budget to our constituents without knowing the state aid numbers or without having the complete calculation in there?
No, it's our responsibility to put forth a budget, and unless the state law changes on the vote date, we have to do it. There's no other options.
So we're able to, for lack of a better word, fudge the state aid number and give a best guess estimate.
It's. I would never say that. I would say that it's.
I never think that you would say that.
We calculate the numbers based on real data.
Vermont term?
Is what I say.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now have our public forum for the budget only. Would anyone like to address the board and speak on our budget?
Dave?
Perhaps our officer. No, saying no. Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the budget work session? Oh, all the hands at once. Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Mr. Lemay, second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Would someone like to make a motion, please, to return to the regular board meeting? Mr. Lemay, thank you. Dr. McCleary, second. Is there any discussion? None, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Is there a motion, please, to adjourn into executive session to discuss employment matters relating to particular persons and matters of current litigation? Mrs. Beeger, thank you. Mr. Lemay, second. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried unanimously. Is there a motion to return the regular board meeting to open session? Mr. Lemay, thank you, and Mrs. Van Slice, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion carried unanimously. Our next board meeting will be held on Tuesday, March 10th, 2020 at 7 p.m. here at District Office. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the regular board meeting? Dr. McCleary, thank you. Dr. Renader, second. All in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion carried unanimously. Good night.
Good night.